Welcome back to the Bentonville Beacon podcast, where we're sharing stories and advice from the leaders sparking the rise of Bentonville, one of the fastest growing and most dynamic cities in the United States, nestled in the Ozark Mountains of Northwest Arkansas in the heartland of America. Hey, I'm your host, James Bell, and I am thrilled to introduce you today virtually to Tim Hall. Tim is co-founder of Simporter, which automates product research through artificial intelligence. In this episode, you'll learn all about Tim and Simporter, including why the company is relocating from Atlanta to Bentonville. And at the end of the episode, I might even ask Tim a few questions about artificial intelligence, including perhaps an artificial intelligence joke that I'm trying to work on. Tim, welcome to the Bentonville Beacon.
Thank you, James. It's great to be here, and thank you for having me.
You bet. So what should our audience know about Tim Hall?
Well, I am moving to Bentonville is the number one thing, and we'll talk about that later in the show about why. But I'm going to be in people's neighborhood. For those people who are watching this in Northwest Arkansas, you're going to see me around. And I'm really looking forward to that move because it's just a wonderful place. I've been in Atlanta for a long time, and Northwest Arkansas is just a wonderful place to move to.
Well, cool. You've worked for some pretty big brands, Hasbro, P&G, Cartoon Network. How have those helped you prepare to launch and lead your last few companies?
Well, I never intended to be an entrepreneur per se, and I'm on my third entrepreneurial gig right now. But I always liked working for the big companies. And the issue I ran into there, I was in marketing and product development in each of those kinds of operations. And the problem I ran into was whenever we'd bring out a new product line or a new brand, we ran into the same set of problems. And this is over decades. We have all our eggs in one basket, and that basket had a hole in the bottom. And so the current company that we'll talk about, we co-founded to try to solve that problem. And so I got to tell people I spent a lot of time on the problem side, and now here later in my career, I'm really working on the solution side.
Yeah, I gotcha. Sounds familiar. Never intended to be an entrepreneur myself, and after a few big companies, suddenly I was part of starting a few as well. Let's talk about Simporter, but before we do, I'd love to hear an update on your Ukrainian team. Early last year, when we started talking about you moving Simporter to Bentonville, the unthinkable happened. Russia, of course, invaded Ukraine. And in an instant, your top priority was not the move. It was getting your team to safety. Will you talk about what happened and how your employees and their families are doing today?
Yeah, we care a lot about what's going on there. And, I wish that invasion was over, but it's not yet. It's still rolling on in front of our eyes, in front of the world's eyes. So as background, we started our company 4 years ago. It is an American company. Its headquarters is Atlanta, but most of our team is in Ukraine, in the capital city of Kyiv. And so we have 25, 26 people there today who are developers, data scientists, data engineers, a really hardcore tech team as well as others. And my co-founder, Dylan, lived there up until the invasion, a couple weeks before the invasion. But we set up shop in Ukraine back in 2018, specifically because it has this wonderful community of technology people, this really talented group of people, very easy to work with. And it's a little bit easier to recruit over there than it is in the United States. The salary structure is a little bit better, and they're less likely to get poached from us by big companies like the Googles and the Amazons of the world. So we've really enjoyed being in that space. And then we had to, like everybody else, we had to deal with the impacts of COVID, of the epidemic, and learn to work remotely, which we did in 20 and 21. And then just when stuff was going back to normal in early 2022, the Russians invaded, and it was absolutely terrifying for those first couple of weeks because, most of the people who worked there, quite a bit younger than me. And I was just really worried about them like you would be a family member. I think the right word I would use is terrified. I was pretty terrified, and Dylan, my co-founder, was terrified. He had gotten out 2 weeks before the invasion. When the Americans closed the embassy, being American, he had to move, so he went to Portugal. But the rest of our team was there, and the first thing we did was make sure people were safe, and get in contact with everybody. Create like a telephone tree to make sure we could check on each other, and we had a number of people who were allowed to leave the country and did for a little while. So they set up martial law originally. So the men who were working there could not leave Ukraine. The women could. And so we arranged to meet several of them at the border as they crossed over to, say, Poland or Germany, help them find housing, help them find temporary office space, help with all those kinds of things. And we spent quite a bit of time in the second quarter, March, April, May, just doing that and make sure people were safe, making sure they had what they needed. And they stayed working. They didn't need to. We just cared about their safety. But a lot of people in Kyiv, when the Russians were attacking, the neighborhoods were kind of surrounded, but they had internet access and never lost internet and didn't lose electricity really till later this year. So they kept working, although some of them were serving. We can't really speak to that, but they were serving in their home defense. And we made sure that the environment was right for the team, however they were going to deal with this situation. And there was one time we were on a conference call and we could hear, shelling in the distance. And, I've been through a lot of stuff in business and I've never been on a conference call where there was shelling. So that's pretty terrifying. But to your point now, I think the situation in Kyiv is more stable. Our people continue to work hard. And those who wanted to find another place, some folks with children are happy and safe in other places in Western Europe, and some have even come to the United States with our support. So we're trying to make sure people can work wherever it's best for them and their families.
Good. I'm glad you're doing that for your employees and their families, and that everybody's as safe as they could be, considering the situation. Heartbroken for them in their homeland, and hopefully this thing will come to a good resolution sometime in the near future.
We all hope that, yeah.
Yeah. So, Tim, let's get into Simporter specifically. What's the big, important problem that your team is solving, and who are you solving it for?
So the biggest problem we're solving is that one that vexed me over my career at those big companies, which is product failure. You spend a lot of time and a lot of money launching a new product, and then 95% of them will fail within 2 years of getting on the shelf. 95% failure rate. So we wanted to solve that with better data, making better decisions, and then validating those in a better way. And we're kind of at a very important time in this space because AI has allowed us to get our arms around more data than we ever could before. So the old days, we would, come up with some new product ideas. Maybe we'd go do some focus groups, get some consumers who are interested in our product category to talk about what they're looking for, what needs are unmet. And we might do a survey, that was pretty traditional, some quantitative research. And then we use a lot of gut opinion and, go make a product. And today there's so much data out there that we collect. We'll collect it out of Google. We'll collect it out of product reviews that people write on a Walmart.com or Amazon, or public posts they're putting on, TikTok or Instagram or other social media. Just tremendous amounts of data. And think of that data as kind of unstructured. It's not like they're going there and checking a box like you would in a survey. They're just letting it all hang out. So AI is simply a tool that we use to make sense of that all, to look for where are the topics, put those patterns together. And then when you analyze that data, you can actually tell people, well, this would be a better product. This would actually people are looking for this problem to be solved. And here's what you should do to solve it. And here's how many you'll sell if you solve it. And that helps really kind of catalyze what consumer product companies should be doing to kind of gain some new territory and grow their organic revenue. And so our clients are consumer product companies. So the people like, Colgate, Church and Dwight, Dannon Yogurt, those are some of our clients that use this tool to help figure out where should they go next, how should they approach the marketplace, and how can they succeed.
That's really cool. Would you like to share an example of how you've helped one of them, whether you can name them or not, and to the extent that you can, what the results were?
There's one company, and I won't use their name, but it's a vitamins company, and so we're all familiar with different kinds of vitamins on the shelf. And these guys have a very well-known brand, and they were trying to kind of move upstream and do a more premium priced product that would help with cognitive abilities. There's a lot of products out there for people in my age target who want to have better memory and better cognitive function, and so they used our tool to go after that audience. But what they discovered was actually the bigger opportunities with a younger audience. It was with regular folks in their 20s and 30s and 40s who were kind of getting a brain fog towards the end of the afternoon. I think we can all relate to it when the caffeine wears off. You get a little bit of a brain fog 4 or 5 o'clock. And so they developed a vitamin, a gummy, to kind of help address cognitive clarity in the afternoon instead of in your retirement years, which was really cool that they found that insight using our tool. And then this is back in 19, this thing called ashwagandha, this adaptogen, was really popular in the natural food space, but it wasn't really well known at mass retail. You wouldn't find a lot of ashwagandha at Walmart back in 2019. And so our client was working on sort of a B vitamin formula, but our data showed this adaptogen of ashwagandha was really starting to become important to people. It was the early stages. So they repositioned around that, which had very good benefits. The product did really, really well. They were kind of first out there with ashwagandha, with this different positioning. Most importantly, when you get to the bottom line, it didn't blend in like everything else did in that memory space for older people. It was really distinctive because we really didn't have a formulation like that for just everyday use. And so it's done really, really well. We're really proud of that work.
Yeah, glad to hear that. Did it help them find sort of a blue ocean then, where like everybody else was probably playing in the little bit older age category? Was the younger category wide open?
Yeah, it really was for this kind of a thing. It's a very crowded space with vitamins, so finding anything that's kind of unique like that is really valuable for them, and I think they found it that way.
Oh, that's pretty solid. Talk about your co-founder. Who did you co-found the company with?
We're a family company in the sense my co-founder is Dylan Hall, who is my son, and I'm very lucky. I have 3 grown sons, and he and I started kicking this idea around back in 2017 or early 18. And I mentioned I kind of came from the problem side of things, having been in consumer products. He kind of came from the solution side because he was working in Eastern Europe for this lab that was funded by Google. And they were doing deep research on AI models, machine learning models. And I didn't know much about them, 5 years ago, I'm like, well, that sounds kind of interesting. And we started talking about data and unstructured data, which is all the stuff we look at. And from his knowledge base, he was able to kind of figure out, boy, if you plug these pieces of data into this kind of a machine learning tool, it can kind of test itself and tell you, the things we should be doing going forward in the product category to be successful, or if you want to go to new categories. And then because he was in Eastern Europe, he had a lot of friends and network who were programmers and developers. And so he kind of got the team together in Ukraine, and he relocated there in 17. We put together the team in 18 and then spent a couple of years just working on the software, not commercializing it all, just like making this thing really hum before we kind of left stealth and took it public.
Cool. That's really neat. How do you see the company growing over the next few years?
Well, we're building a company to last. We're building something that will endure and grow by solving people's problems. And I think we're a little bit different than some startup companies that sort of live by, well, we're going to do a round and we're going to do another round. Let's go do a 10 million round. Let's go to 20 million round and let's sell. We're kind of like, let's solve problems for this group of customers and then let's solve problems for that group of customers. And along the way, we're going to make a lot of money. and we are, and that's nice. But that's our focus. It's to build something that's going to be around for a long time, in who knows what state. It could be a public company in a few years, but we'd like that to be a public company in Bentonville, Arkansas. And that's really what our focus has been, is building something up really important in that area.
Cool. Well, I'm glad you're coming here. Welcome home.
Thank you.
We first met when you were in the Fuel Accelerator in Bentonville. Will you talk about your experience here with Fuel and with Bentonville while you're here?
Yeah, it's like so. I'm based in Atlanta. That's where we started the company, and I've been in other accelerators. Like in Silicon Valley, we were in an accelerator from Plug and Play in Sunnyvale, so right in the kind of heart of the tech world. But we've done other ones in Montreal and some in Europe. So we kind of love accelerators because they're a great place to kind of meet and network for future clients, future prospects. That's what's been really valuable for us. So we joined the one right in the midst of the pandemic and came out in 2021. And Tom Douglas was the main mentor running the program and still is. And it was just an amazing experience because there's this one particular company in Bentonville that gets a lot of attention. And so we certainly had a lot of interaction and mentorship with that. But we're not just like about working with that one particular well-known company. We're really about the overall ecosystem. We're really about people and companies in the area that might need our service or might add to our journey. And so from that standpoint, Fuel was really, really great because the networking was great. I met a lot of terrific people. And then very smartly, there's this focus on the lifestyle of being in Bentonville, which has attracted a number of founders. Besides me, a lot of my friends have been attracted to that. And I can tell you, having done these in places like Silicon Valley, you don't really get that. You don't get this, they sort of kind of come expecting you kind of want to be there because of the capital markets. But Northwest Arkansas in total really kind of reached out its arms and said, come on in. Here's all the ways we want to bring you in there into our community to help you be successful, to create jobs in our community, and that was really important for us and a big reason why we're moving.
Good, glad to hear it. That kind of led into the next question: why you concluded that Bentonville needed to be your new headquarters and home, or put another way, how does Bentonville help Simporter in ways that other communities don't or can't?
Well, we've only been in two communities really, Atlanta and Bentonville, so I can't speak to what others are doing. Silicon Valley, I guess we can. But what was unique here was this sort of sense of different groups would engage and then kind of bring you to another group. So we started with Fuel. That's what brought us over to the first time. And then we met you in the chamber, and that kind of opened up a wider network of people. And you introduced us to our new partners at Atento Capital, which was great. Atento, Sterling Smith, just wonderful resource for us, great partnership. We were able to raise some seed capital with their support and them, vetting us. And that led us to Innovate Arkansas, that group, which came in as an investor, and it's just kind of flowered from there. And in each case, what we're getting from that area, some capital is nice, but it's really the people and the connections that we're making. Both, I've met a ton of entrepreneurs in the area, famous guys who will spend time with me despite their incredibly busy schedules and with other entrepreneurs to kind of just tell us, well, here's how I did it, and here's the mistakes I made, and here's what's worked well for me. And really not just lip service, but like investing time to kind of help us along on the journey. And uniquely, each one said, we'd really love to have companies like you, tech companies, more of that in this Northwest Arkansas area. And so that meant a lot to us. And that was really a big factor in why we went. It was this sort of network effect. And, in Bentonville, of course, one of the beauties of that market in Northwest Arkansas is you're 6 degrees from anybody you want to meet. And so that's been really helpful. It's not like being in New York City or Silicon Valley.
To challenge you, 6 degrees, I think you're talking more like 1 or 2 or 3.
Yeah, I think so. Yes, you're always one person away, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, it is a really neat ecosystem. I do feel like people sort of wrap their arms around the folks who come here and go, come on, let's figure out how to get you to your next step and get you there as quickly as possible. So I'm glad to hear that has worked out as your story as well. Tim, for you personally, how do you see Bentonville helping you live your best life?
Well, again, I've been in Atlanta. I'm a Yankee originally, but I've been in Atlanta long enough to be a native on Atlanta's standpoint. And that's all well and good, but I like to be outdoors a lot. And in Atlanta, you have to get in your car for a while before you can really get outdoors. And so just being here during the fuel accelerator exposed me to the trails, exposed me to just being able to walk around, not get in your car during the day. I like to ride, and so it's kind of a natural fit for me personally. And so that was part of the calculus. It was just a good life change for me and where I am in my life today.
Excellent. You've mentioned a couple of things already, but beyond building Simporter, what are some of your favorite things to do here in Bentonville and around Northwest Arkansas?
Well, I like to ride, the trails, I've only gone on a few of them, and some of them are pretty challenging. So I have to, one of my opportunities is get in better shape, cardiovascular shape. So that's definitely a focus. Yeah,
we can
you can always
together.
be in better shape. Yeah. The second thing is to get an e-bike. So I'm going to have two bikes because I'm not above admitting I should be on an e-bike for some of those trails. I think that I could use that assist. I think I've earned it. And so I kind of enjoy things that are outdoors. I do think, Crystal Bridges is amazing. I find myself going there whenever I have extra time. But I think a lot of it's going to be about being outdoors for me when I'm not working, which is the vast majority of the time I'm working.
That's cool. I feel like I need to take just during the day sometime around lunch, maybe making the short walk to Crystal Bridges, from our office to downtown to down the trail, and just hanging out at Crystal Bridges for the afternoon working. I think that would be a really neat place to just hang out and work.
When you get outside your normal work environment, it tends to work on the right side of your brain, so you will be more creative. So I highly agree with that.
Will you tell me a story? We'll make it a hashtag because Bentonville story. And that's a story or a moment where something happened where you think, gee, that could only happen in Bentonville, or maybe it describes the essence of this place.
Yeah, well, there's one that comes to mind. As I was in the fuel accelerator, there's a few people I had put on a list early on that I wanted to meet and spend a little bit of time with. And they weren't necessarily mentors in the program, but I just had made a note. And one of them, it was COVID. It was kind of hard to get through to some people at that time. People weren't in their offices. Well, some were, but not everybody was working in the offices. And so I'd gone pretty far through this program. It was like a 10-week program, 12 week program. And I hadn't been able to get to this person, even through that one degree of connection. So one Saturday I was riding on a trail that I probably shouldn't have been on. It was on one of the tougher ones off of, is it Slaughter Pen Trail? Slaughter Pen? I think that's one of them. And so I needed a little help on figuring out which way I was going on a trail because I was about to get on an extra long 5-mile loop that I didn't need. So I just started talking to a guy who is much better rider than I was. And I won't say who it is because that wouldn't be right. But anyways, that turned out to be the guy I've been looking for to talk business with. And so, not only did he help me find my way off the trail, he helped me with the company's journey as well, which was terrific. That can only happen in Bentonville. That's not going to happen in New York City, Atlanta, Silicon Valley. That was just one of those magic moments in Northwest Arkansas.
Some folks' boardrooms are a boardroom, and some are the trails here in Bentonville. It's such a neat place.
I'm a lot better in a boardroom than on a bike. I have to be very, very humble on a bike, especially with these guys tend to be a little bit younger, but in this case, it worked out great.
Outstanding. Well, hey, before we pivot to some sort of random questions and some questions about AI, let me ask you this important question. If somebody wants to reach Tim Hall or get to know Simporter, how do they do that?
You can email me at tim@simporter.com. That'll come straight through to me. That's the quickest way to do it. Or if you're in Northwest Arkansas, I work out of the Ledger. So you can find me usually near the coffee.
Excellent. Well, that's where you'll find me a lot as well. So, artificial intelligence turns out it's a pretty hot topic right now. So I'd love to hear your thoughts, if you don't mind. And let's start with, I guess, the more serious question that a lot of people are asking. Is AI going to take our jobs, or is it an adjunct to our work, or is it something different?
I guess I would say it's something different because it's transformational. So no, it's not going to replace humans. It is going to redefine how we engage with our roles today. It's going to everybody in most pursuits is going to have to take the game up a little bit because of all the stuff that it can do. But on the other hand, it's going to make our work a lot more interesting and take away some of the routine stuff that we do. And so we should all be a little bit happier after the fact.
Yeah, absolutely. What's the coolest thing that you've seen AI do so far?
Well, I think the most sort of topical thing is ChatGPT, which everybody's been talking about. And if you experiment with it, it's pretty fascinating how it can very, very quickly write up topics that ordinarily take quite a bit of research and structure to formulate. We've been using ChatGPT for almost a year now in our product, and it kind of bridges the state. So we're using AI models to kind of uncover product trends, product needs, consumer needs, opportunities, and then we kind of test these unique ideas that come through it that get kind of bubbled up. But there's a stage that you have to write those ideas up. And maybe a little over a year and a half ago, one of our clients said, "I just don't want to write it up. It's going to take me 3 days to write up 5 different takes on this new product." And so we were like, "Oh, well, we could probably automate that." And so we actually hooked up into the earlier version from OpenAI and put that into our tool. And the immediacy of you getting that, it's still data in, data out. You still have to have good data coming in to make it useful and have good utility. But we started that place anyways, and so now here's like this icing on the cake that creates this beautiful description of the product. It's pretty astonishing, and I use it for just like marketing writing. If I'm working on a topic for a blog post or a paper that we're trying to publish, I'll use OpenAI's tool to just write out, give me 1,000 words on topic A, point out these 3 sources, kind of direct it to the sources and let it write that up. It's pretty fascinating what can come through that. So that's OpenAI. That's kind of the new kid on the block. Beyond that, there are tons of incredibly interesting machine learning models under the hood that aren't going to get as much attention as OpenAI because they're not as consumer facing. But there's a lot of really cool stuff going on out there.
That's cool. I too have been using ChatGPT quite a bit, and am finding you're right. It's as good as the data that goes in. It's also as good as the question that's asked, and the refinement to that question as you ask it to write something and ask to revise it. I learned a new trick this morning. Did you know you can turn the temperature of ChatGPT up and down?
The temperature, I haven't seen that term used.
So you can tell it, answer this at temperature 100, and it'll give like max effort. Or you can say, answer at temperature 0.1, and it'll give you an okay effort. It's really interesting to play with that. I just discovered it, I guess really yesterday. I saw it in a blog somewhere, so I tried it out this morning. It was really neat.
That's really clever. I'm sure our data engineers know that, but nobody's told me yet. So I got to check out temperature.
Cool. Well, what's a use for AI that you haven't seen implemented yet, but expect to see or can't wait to come to fruition?
Well, there's a lot of different use cases that keep bubbling up. And the one that I think is close but not there yet is in true creative execution. When we're developing advertising or we're developing really new ideas. And I was talking with somebody in the entertainment world. So AI has the ability to take existing ideas and existing themes and reconstitute those. But in the world of entertainment, when AI really delivers something as weird and groundbreaking as like Squid Games, that's kind of magic. Like, where did that come from? Who would have greenlit a program like that? Episodic series of where everybody dies each episode and scripted and in a foreign language. That's just, how would you predict that that's going to do well in the United States, right? And so I think that bringing it to the most kind of magical place, which is storytelling in novel ways, is going to be next on the horizon, but it'll take a little bit of work to outperform what brilliant writers and brilliant storytellers could do today.
Yeah. I wonder if we can make it interactive by using generative AI to sort of finally help start changing the endings or changing other parts of stories so that it's particular to the person that's watching it.
Yeah, just don't tell George Lucas. We don't want any change. Don't tell Disney that we don't want any changes in the Star Wars canon. But everywhere else is fair game.
That's exactly right. Hey, how are you using AI outside of work?
Well, I have my music is all AI generated these days, or at least organized using AI. We're touching in a lot of different places right now. So I'm very tired of the algorithms that are controlling my news feed. I've been turning off a lot of social apps because I don't like the way those apps are serving up certain stories and diminishing others. So I think it's incumbent on all of us to be really mindful and kind of be aware of where it's having an impact, and then decide for ourselves: do I like that impact or not? Do I want to be force fed this set of inputs, or do I want to find a way to broaden that and not let it just cater to my clicking habits? So I think all of us have to kind of keep that in mind and be judicious about how we engage with it, with different forms that are using AI.
Yeah, absolutely. What advice do you have to people who want to know more about how they may use artificial intelligence at work or in their lives right now?
Well, I'm not one for giving much advice, but I would say that it's kind of important to just plunge in and recognize that, things are going to continue to change at a pretty rapid level. And it's never too late to kind of learn new approaches and stay on top of these things. I started in consumer products, for example, on the job side of things, back when TV advertising was everything. We'd run commercials in the morning, and people would flock to the store that afternoon to buy our can of coffee. It just doesn't work that way. It's fragmented, and it's digital, and it's peer to peer. Things have changed so much. They're going to continue to change, and so it's fascinating. But you got to kind of set time aside to think a little bit outside the box, outside your regular routines, and say, what's going on? How do I learn about this? You could just open up OpenAI and have it give you a little lesson or tutorial. But it's important to just stay curious and keep tabs of all this really, really interesting stuff that's happening with technology today.
Yeah, you bet. Stay curious, folks. That's amazing. That's really good advice, sage advice. Let's wrap up with a couple of random questions. Over the course of your life and career, how have the meanings of the words happiness and success changed for you?
Well, happiness has always been internal for me and not dependent on what was going on in the outside environment. Happiness for me has always been more about family and friends. So I've been happy when I was pretty poor, and I was happy when I was pretty rich, and I was happy when I was poor again. So I've kind of gone through all kinds of stuff like that. And that's really more about, just understanding, what you can control, be disciplined to do it as well as you can, and what you can't control, just recognize that stuff happens, and, we'll get through it. And so that was the happiness question. What was the other half of your question? Success in my worldview shouldn't be measured in dollars and cents or fabulous trips or how many people are following on Instagram. Literally 0 people follow me on Instagram. But I would define success as, if you setting forth goals. First of all, first step to success is to set goals, and then achieving them despite the obstacles. That's successful. In my case, I'm doing that to grow a business really big, and success for me is a really large. Me and my co-founder, our whole team, is a really large enterprise that creates a lot of jobs, creates a lot of value. Is going to be there for a long time, and makes wealth along the way for shareholders. That's really important to us. But it's really about setting up those objectives and succeeding no matter the obstacles, overcoming them, and then doing it again. That to me is success. Over my career, I've had somewhere I've crushed the obstacles and had wild success and wild financial success. And I've lived through a few recessions, and I've gone through the Great Recession, and I've just seen all the balance sheet I had go to hell. I've had companies, my first company that I started was within 5 years was doing nearly 100 million revenue, and within 10 years was pretty much gone. So I've seen the ups and downs, and the key is making sure you know what you're trying to accomplish, taking that hill, and that's what's going to define your sense of self-worth and your sense of success. For me, that's what the philosophy would be.
Fantastic. One of the things I've been trying to get Chat GPT to do for me is to tell me a funny original joke. And frankly, I'm out of luck so far. It's been, I'll call it an abysmal failure. In fact, I've had to ask AI to explain some of its jokes to me before and still left unsatisfied. So in my quest for a good joke, I'll just ask somebody who works with AI as his business. Tim, what's the funniest joke you know about artificial intelligence?
That's really putting me on the spot to come up with a joke myself about AI. I'm going to have to take a rain check on the joke because we actually have several on the bulletin board, but I just can't remember one offhand. But tell me one that you've been working on. I'll tell you how funny it was or how not funny it was.
They've been so bad that I don't remember them. That's not that I can't even remember them. I have a hard enough time remembering the jokes that are funny, and some that I can remember, I can't tell. So I guess we'll have to both take a rain check.
I have an 8-year-old and a 14-year-old at home. So the 8-year-old jokes aren't particularly funny, and the 14-year-old aren't fit for a family podcast. So yeah, those have occupied my mental space, and I don't think I'll be able to share those.
Hey, one of the silliest jokes I ever heard, I was I was in the middle of a pitch competition, and we had an AV problem. It was an AV problem. It wasn't a audio problem. It was just a video problem or a visual problem. And so we were waiting, and one of the panelists or the judges, this VC, he told a joke, and he said, well, while we're waiting, 2 whales walk into a bar. Maybe they swim into a bar, and they plop down on bar stools, and the bartender says, what will you have? And one of the whales looks at the bartender and goes, and the other one looks at him and says, shut up, Bob, you're drunk already. I don't know why that's funny to me, but it was sure funny at the time because the guy who told the joke, I would not have expected to tell that joke. Yeah, I'm talking about you, Ken Woody, if you're listening out there. Okay, what's something that you want to learn or get better at over the rest of this year?
Okay, learn or get better at over the rest of this year. So I have been hiring people who code in Python. Dylan, my co-founder, he codes, but I was never a coder. I'm an imposter who is good at maybe hiring people, making sure they get paid, and selling, but never actually programming. So I'm actually learning Python right now. I'm really, enjoying the process. I do it on Saturday mornings and Sunday afternoons. And if I ever get stuck, I have a whole team of people who are going to unstuck me. But I just find it really fascinating. It's kind of like doing a puzzle. If you're not someone who does a puzzle, and then you sit down, like on vacation or something, you start working on a 1,000-word puzzle, you kind of get into it. And the time, you get in the flow and the time kind of goes by. And so that's one of the things that I'm enjoying. I should have been doing it 5 years ago, but, let's be honest, I was doing other stuff.
Yeah, I've thought about doing that, and maybe I'll get around to it. It hasn't gotten high enough on my get around to it yet list. And now I have a 3-year-old boy at home, so it'll probably wait even longer.
Get him to code. That's my scenario. Yeah.
Coding by 5, right? Why not?
Right.
Okay, last question. Tim, what's something I should have asked you that I did not ask?
Well, one thing I meant to mention, which I didn't, so if you'd asked that, is we're talking about the reasons to come to Northwest Arkansas or to Arkansas in general. And I talked about, the community, the partners like Innovate Arkansas and Atento. But what I left out is a really important partner that's really unique in Arkansas, and that is the AEDC, the Arkansas Economic Development Commission, operating out of Little Rock. They have some incentives that are really incredible. So one of them is for every $1 million that we raise in equity, they contribute a tax credit of 33% to the investors. And if the investors are in Arkansas and have a state tax liability, they can use it. And if they're not, they can sell it to a bank. And so there aren't a lot of states that do things like that. You'll find those incentives if you're a much larger company. Like here in Georgia, they'll spend quite a bit of taxpayers' dollars or taxpayers' rebates, if you will, to bring an auto plant to Georgia. But you won't see something like that for startups or entrepreneurs. And then another one is the Arkansas Development Finance Agency, or ADFA. They actually contributed equity alongside some of our investors when we did a seed round. So not tax credits, but actual equity going in alongside investors. And to the investor community that we brought with us from out of state, they looked at that and they're like, that seems really too good to be true. And I'm like, no, it's here. It's in Arkansas. You're not going to find that in California, New York, or Georgia. And so I think that's something really valuable. And so if it's like a startup company listening to this podcast, they should definitely check out AEDC because it meant a lot to us and to our investors.
Absolutely. I mean, gosh, if you're a startup founder and you really want to look smart to your investors, show up and say to them, have I got a deal for you? I can hand you a 33% discount on your investment today. And if you have somebody you want to co-invest with you, I can give them a 33% discount on their investment today. And if you aren't in Arkansas, there's a bank that'll buy that tax credit 90 cents on the dollar. I mean,
yep.
Talk about a way to, it's a good early conversation piece for your investors. Tim, thank you for sharing your time with me and the Bentonville Beacon audience today. I can't wait to release this episode out into the wild, and maybe I'll even have AI critique it for us, and I probably won't understand what it told me anyway, especially if I ask it to make a joke about us. But seriously, I enjoyed spending time with you today, so thanks for coming on, and again, welcome home.
James, the pleasure is all mine. I really appreciate you having me on the show, and I'm very, very glad to be in Northwest Arkansas. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Well, thrilled to have you and Simporter here. So thank you to our Bentonville Beacon audience. Without you, this show doesn't exist. It's for you. So please share this episode with your friends and colleagues. Keep coming back to bentonvillebeacon.com to see all of our episodes or listen on your favorite podcast player. And if you do that, hit your subscribe button. And of course, keep coming back to listen to learn about Bentonville's leaders and their businesses and this place in Northwest Arkansas where you get more of what you want and less of what you don't. See you next time.